couple of years ago, after graduating from college and living in an apartment for a couple of years, I finally bought my first house. It was sort of small but had 2 floors and a basement. I got a pretty good deal on it because it needed a little bit of work, but over the first few months, I got a lot of improvements done. Anyways, one day after work, I was going down to the basement to do some laundry. The basement was mainly unfinished, but I did have some extra furniture and a few boxes down there. As I was passing by the main room of the basement to the laundry room, I thought I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I stopped in place and looked over. Then I leaned down to get a better look. When I could get a better angle, I saw that there was a man hiding underneath a table that I had sitting in the basement. I must have been frozen in shock, because it took me several seconds to believe that there was actually some random guy in my basement. The man made eye contact with me, and then he moved. He got up from underneath the table and ran into a nearby room. The next thing I knew, all of the lights went out and I couldn't see anything at all. I figured he messed with the fuse boxes down there and switched them off or something. I literally couldn't see anything at all. And unfortunately for me, I had left my phone upstairs charging and couldn't use anything as a flashlight. I was probably about 15 or 20 feet away from the stairs, and I wanted to get out of the basement as soon as I could. I started to slowly walk in what I thought was the direction of the stairs. It was very quiet down there. Then I heard noises of moving coming from a ways away, but I couldn't tell exactly where. I didn't know who this guy was in the basement with me, or how he got in my house, but I was terrified at him possibly being dangerous. I quietly moved a bit faster towards the stairs, and when I thought I would be getting to the steps, I tripped on something and fell down. When I did, I heard more movement. This time it sounded like the guy was closer to me. I decided to crawl to the stairs, and I constantly felt around for the steps. Soon I was able to find them, and I began crawling up the stairs on my hands and knees. At last, I felt myself reach the door to the upstairs. Then I began to stand up to open the handle. When I did, I felt my right ankle suddenly get grabbed. Whoever it was had grabbed my leg and pulled me back to the ground. Then we started to go back down the stairs. As this happened, I desperately kicked my legs around as fast as I could. I could feel the man grabbing at my legs and trying to get closer to me. I could feel the man grabbing at my legs, trying to pull me down. I was able to get one really good kick in, and it seemed to get him in the head. I felt his grip loosen, and I quickly kicked away and stood back up, then opened the door. I wasted no time in shutting the door behind me and running to grab my phone. Then I ran out the back door to the house and called the police. I didn't stop running until I was off of my property and in the street. The police said they would have someone there within a few minutes. I continued to move away from the house though, because I didn't want to take a chance on seeing the man again. I didn't even care if he left. When the police arrived, sure enough, the man was gone, and my front door was left open. I don't know how the man got in my house or what he was doing down there, but those were probably some of the scariest moments of my life that day. I was very careful to always lock my doors after that, and I only lived in that house for a few more months before moving. This story happened many years ago when I was a kid. If I had to guess, I'd say I was maybe 12 years old. My family lived in a pretty average house in a big neighborhood. We had 1 level and then a basement. I was always kind of scared of the basement because I was a kid, and it would usually be dark down there. Overall, it just seemed scary to me. We didn't really use the basement much for anything other than storage, though. We did have a little setup of an old couch and a couple of chairs with a TV, though, but it was only used occasionally. One night when my parents were gone, it was just my older brother and me at home. I had to go down to the basement to get something, and as I opened the door to the dark basement, I was immediately a little bit scared. I ignored the feeling though, and turned on the light and then walked downstairs. I went down there and noticed that something looked different. As I got closer, I saw that all the furniture that was set up in the basement had been rearranged. It was as if someone had moved everything to the other side of the room. It wasn't really messed up, but just rearranged. I was startled and ran back upstairs. I asked my brother if he had rearranged things in the basement, and he shook his head and told me no. I told him to come downstairs and look with me, so we both went downstairs and saw how everything was rearranged differently. My brother told me that he had just been down there the day before, and it wasn't like that. We both agreed how it was really strange, but knew our parents must have done it. When they got back home later that night, we asked them, but to our surprise, they said they hadn't moved anything at all. We all went back downstairs once again. When we did, everything was back to normal. All the furniture and everything was just how it had been before. My dad went around and looked everywhere and said everything seemed to be perfectly in place. Nothing else like that ever happened, and my family only lived there one more year before moving. Still to this day, though, I always wondered what exactly happened down there. A few years ago, when I was in high school, I used to get home and play video games almost every day. I mainly played video games in the basement, where we had a pretty big TV, and I wouldn't bother my parents who liked to watch TV upstairs when they got home from work. Our house was a split level, and our basement wasn't really below the ground. Well, I guess half of it kind of was in the front, but in the back of the house we had a sliding glass door that opened up to the backyard. One day when I got home from school, I immediately went to the basement to play video games like always. Right away, I noticed that the sliding glass door was open just a little bit. I could feel the cool air blowing inside. I went over and shut it and immediately wondered who had left the door open, because I knew that I hadn't. Then I went to the couch and started gaming. I played video games until my parents got home and called me up for dinner. I ate with them and then did homework in my room and then went to bed. I had forgotten all about the door being left open downstairs and didn't even mention it to my parents. The next day, though, when I got home from school, the door in the basement was open once again, but this time it was much wider. I also noticed that quite a few things in the basement appeared to be messed up. I got a bad feeling and ran upstairs and called my parents. They told me to call the police, so I did and then waited for them to arrive. When they got there, they searched the entire house and property, but nobody was found. It seemed there had been someone in our basement, but they had left that morning. I was glad they were gone, but it was really creepy to realize that whoever was in our basement was likely in our house with us all night.